This conference will now be recorded.
Good evening, folks. Time being 4:45, I'd like to call this meeting of December 5th, 2024 to order. John Scanlon is joining us online tonight. Welcome, John. Can you hear us?
Yeah, I can. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay.
Okay. All right. We'll stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we have a few donations. We have Franklin Savings Bank for the Christmas parade, $100, and a cash donation for $57 received at the parade. A motion that we accept those donations.
Jessamine, second.
Motion's made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
The Senior Center, I have a letter to read on this one. It says, "Dear Selectmen, we would like to make this donation of $200 to the Senior Center in recognition of the Tilton Town employees. Throughout the year, we have made many interactions with nearly every department, and we have never been disappointed. Helpful, professional, and courteous would be described our experience. For that, we are grateful. We live where we do. Thank you, Anonymous. And no, we are not town employees." And they donated $200.
Thank you, Anonymous.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep.
Yes.
We have Santa breakfast admissions for $100, a donation check from the Naughton Family Trust for $25, and a donation check for $100 from David Robbins in memory of Stephen Campbell. For that, I make a motion to accept all of these donations to the Senior Center and very grateful. Thank you.
Jessamine, second.
Motion has been made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you, John. Okay, Town Administrator report.
Did you want to do the minutes, Madam Chair?
Review previous minutes.
12:5.
12:5. Okay, yes. 12:5.
And they did get sent out.
These are corrected minutes, right?
Correct.
Yep.
Or yes, they are corrected.
Everybody get a chance to read through them?
I did.
Oh, yeah, I've read.
Yeah, I did.
I'm fine with them.
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes for December 5th.
Jessamine, second.
Motion's been made and seconded. A discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay. Okay, thank you, John. All right, Town Administrator report.
Thank you, Madam. Thank you, Madam Chair. I got a few things I'd like. First on the list, I've asked Amy to put together a follow-up to-do list. Some things that we talk about sometimes get moved off, and I know it frustrates the board and sometimes frustrates me. So on that list, on top of that list, I have the Califf Hill Road project. I guess I'd like to ask the board if you'd like to give me some direction. Are we not going to accept that? We had the hearing. We did discuss. We had several citizens, as you recall, there. I thought it was well attended, and I thought a lot of good things come out of it, but I really didn't get a warm and fuzzy feeling that we wanted to move forward with what was proposed. I know I'm going to talk a little bit later about a meeting with the Board of Selectmen and DOT officials. So I think it's probably going to come up there and maybe some direction before that. Does the board feel comfortable with me reporting back, just saying that we are not pleased with the engineering study and are not prepared to accept the road? How would the board like me to handle that?
Well, if they would like to do the work and not have us accept the road, then that's fine.
Yeah, I mean that I feel the same way. I think that I know we got into a little bit of discussion right after the. I think the engineers presented well. I think the project itself was good.
Right.
I think it would definitely fix the road in a lot of ways, but I don't think that it's fiscally responsible for us to take that on.
Right.
And by the sounds of it, I mean, just speaking with the residents of Caleb Hill Road that I did speak with, they don't want it either. So
Okay.
I think the state needs to continue to take that road
Yep.
on.
Yep. I just
And fix it.
Yeah.
fix it.
Yeah. And if it does come up,
Yeah.
I think we could definitely talk to them about it. But I know for me personally, they need to fix the road
Yeah.
regardless.
My plan was to, when they come here, was to talk about Route 3 and other projects and what the board had wanted me to do, which was bring them, the DOT folks here, so we could all talk together and then plan a public meeting of sort that we could inform the citizens as to what's taking place on Route 3, who's aware of it, what the state is going to do. I'm kind of rehashing what the board discussed, but I'd like to be able to just concentrate on that issue and not delve into other issues like Caleb Hill. So,
What do you think, Catherine?
Well, I couldn't be at that meeting, and I don't think I have a copy of the results in writing. But what I did glean from that meeting is they want to reclaim sections of that road.
correct.
I can't think of any section of Caleb Hill Road that should be reclaimed. That that road is a disaster.
Yeah.
And there,
We didn't make it.
right. And I think one of my biggest concerns, obviously, is the runoff, right?
Drainage.
The drainage, and the line of sight for
Yeah.
what they were proposing.
Yeah.
It just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
It just doesn't. And I agree with you. Just reclaiming some of it, the whole thing needs to be redone, like
Yeah.
from bottom to top.
Right.
Plus, it just doesn't make economic sense for the town to take it. We'd have to put away almost $50,000 a year to maintain it down the road. The one thing I would mention is that once this is drawn to conclusion, we can't recoup our money that we've expended towards the engineering study
Yep.
until that portion is considered concluded. So whether that's done by the board saying, no, we're done, we're not moving any further. So we've expended some monies to date for the engineering that will be reimbursed by the state 100%, but they don't do it until we've reached that point.
John, do you have an opinion in this?
Yeah, I was going to say exactly what Tim said. You know, if we put that in our 10-year plan, it's going to cost more than all of our other stuff on the 10-year plans. And yeah,
Yep.
we just, there's no way we could afford to do a 10-year plan on that one.
Exactly. Yep. Okay, thank you, John.
I'll look at that as message received,
Yep.
Madam Chair, and I will communicate that verbally. Should they need something in writing, I'll put something together and look for the board's approval
Okay.
on it. So, keeping the DOT and the state train of thought, we have tentatively set a meeting with the District 3 engineer, Nancy Spalding, and her staff, as well as, I believe, Nancy is going to bring some right-of-way folks from Concord, as well as potentially, I'd like the board's thoughts on inviting Senators Lang, Executive Counselor Kenny, and obviously our state representatives, Juliet, um, to meet with the board on the 16th. So my ask of the board is that you put some thoughts and questions together that you'd like to discuss with them. I know they're going to do the same. I haven't had a verbal conversation with Nancy, but we've been back and forth on emails. And I did basically explain that the board had many questions as selectmen, or citizens had many questions at voting, as Selectman Dawson had indicated, and that we would like to make sure that we, the town of Tilton government, and they, the people responsible for the construction and the projects along Route 3 that are going on, understand and are on the same page in music, so that we can explain to our citizens that, in fact, the state and the town are communicating on what's the growth, the development, and potentially any future plans of widening projects that might be on the horizon.
I have a question,
Go ahead.
Madam Chair. So everything you just said, do you think, or does the board think that this will draw public attention and we may not have enough space here for people to show up and be part of that meeting?
My thought process, Eric, was that the board had directed me to talk with them, to get them to talk to you,
Yep.
and then have a public meeting. However, these meetings are public, so folks could come.
Yeah.
So
So
that's a good thought.
I remember that you suggested a first meeting, but the second meeting that we invite the public, advertise it to the public,
Mhm.
are all of those players going to come to the second meeting?
That would be my request of them
Okay.
at our first meeting, so that we're not speaking for them, that they can answer any questions. And I indicated in my email to Nancy that the Board of Selectmen and the state engineers and that group was to talk, and so that we're on the same page length as they are, and that that we're made aware of any. I mean, we learned a few things from a couple of meetings ago, where projects are not going to take place in 26 that we thought were going to take place. So I just wanted to make sure that we were all on the
Yeah.
same sheet of music. So
I think it's good, and I'm glad that. I mean, I know Nancy, so
Yeah.
I've worked with her on some other stuff, but I think my concern is that, well, one, we have that meeting, the first one. It's open to the public, so we're going to have that conversation with them. There's a possibility that this place might fill up.
yeah,
But then it's going to be also on recorded.
right.
And then we're going to come back for a second meeting and advertise it,
And
Maybe
we'll meet at the
possibly
PD.
at a bigger location.
Yeah,
Yep.
But yet what do we think is going to be the difference between that first meeting and the second meeting? I just don't want them to show up here to reiterate everything from the first meeting into the second meeting,
Right.
because that's
Right.
a waste of, I think,
Their time
our
and
time
ours.
and their time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yep. Yeah,
So
I
I'm just
do.
kind of curious. I know that that's what we asked you to do.
Right. Yeah.
But the more I'm thinking about it and having you actually say it back to me, I'm kind of curious, like,
Have the
what might be
first
the
meeting at the PD and
Invite the public.
um,
Isn't this room same size, if not larger than the PD room?
There's more seating at the PD.
Well, they have more chairs, but
Right, they have more chairs.
couldn't we get more chairs to fill in the space?
I think we could.
Or we just move it over there. Don't have to move any chairs here and then back.
Uncomfortable room.
I mean, I just think that we're going to have that first conversation, but I also think it would be good, because I would definitely try to solicit questions from the public, and I would want them to email me, hey, can you ask them about X, Y, and Z or whatever, right? Just that way we can try to get some kind of a dialogue. I do think it's important that we have kind of like a write-up as to how we're going to try to control the meeting, in a sense, not control it from them, but for everybody, right?
Flow, right.
Yeah, just a flow of the way the meeting will go. I mean, because we all know we can start getting on one tangent and then we don't discuss everything else.
No.
You know? So, I mean, that's just kind of my thought.
I've seen it happen.
Well, and, the public, I mean, God love them, they'll come in, they've got all their own issues, and I don't want to start talking about moving moose crossings to a more sensible location.
Right. Exactly.
Right.
So I think maybe, what do you think, Madam Chair?
No, I think that we should have it. I think we should advertise it and have it. I don't care where we have it. I think that if we do have it, this may be okay, it may not be. People could stand.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
I'm fine if everybody thinks it should be at the PD. I'm fine with that.
it doesn't matter to me where it is, but I think that it just have the one meeting.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's my opinion.
Okay.
John, do you have something to say about this?
I think if we do one meeting at the PD, and then, a follow up where DOT can come up with some, if they have any answers or, reports back to us as just a regular selectmen's meeting, and, a couple months out,
Great idea.
Yep.
Yeah,
Very
I think
good
that's
idea.
great, John.
if it's needed.
Yeah. Yeah, because I think after we're going to kind of want some after action
Right.
Right.
thoughts about,
Yep.
you know,
It's a great idea.
right.
So again, my request to the board is that you put together a list of questions for the DOT officials that the board might have. Tim and I had, as you know, had a fantastic meeting with him to talk about when we were talking about the Island Bridge, and really got through a lot of weeds, and
Yeah.
it was kind of nice. So
In that, Scott, in that email that for setting up the meeting with them, did you share that with us? So I have kind of like an outline of what you wrote to them as to what we wanted to talk about.
I don't think I did share it with you. I just trying to set it up and basically, but I can.
Yeah, I was just
forward you-
curious
Yep,
what you wrote, just so I have an idea of
sure.
what I need to start writing questions about. There. Right. Okay.
Okay, so tentatively, Nancy did tell me that she thought she had everybody she needed for the 16th, but not to commit it just yet. So I wanted to and I did tell her that I would check with you, make sure 16th was good, and that we would set it up. So I will confirm tomorrow with her for that meeting. So. I received a request from the fire chief. I did send out to you a proposed or a draft request from the fire chief about some parking issues at the Center Street station. There would have been an email this week with my report, but in that it just discussed, and I won't get into it a lot because the chief emailed me today and asked if the commissioners could come to a meeting on the 2nd, your meeting on the 2nd, to meet with you to discuss the fire station building project, which is in draft form. But, and I had prepared tonight, I was going to talk to you about this parking issue, but I think we can do it all on the 2nd, and it will flow better, and the chief will be here and explain better. So on the 2nd at 5:30 was a specific request so that his commissioners who are working can't get here before 5:30.
Can we also, excuse me, can we also request to see if we can get the plan of the survey, please,
Yep.
before that?
Oh,
Yeah, I was going to cover that next. Yep. Dave Krause called me at 3:00 2 hours ago. Tim and I met with Dave to go over the survey of the lot at the fire station, Center Street, Church Street, that whole area where there was a subject, a question of who owned what. Dave has it drawn out. He was going to have me some documents for tonight's meeting for you, but when he went to find the pins this weekend that are or put the pins in the ground, because we asked him, Tim and I asked him to please pin the pavement so that for the town's survey, so we know and for future reference, because there are some current pins there, which he found. But he was going to do that, take pictures, document it on his survey, and then give it to me to give to you. Unfortunately, this weekend there was something downtown and the lot was full. So the guys had already got there, so he couldn't literally drive the pins. So he's going to attempt to do it this Saturday. So I will have, hopefully, on the meeting of the 2nd, we'll have that. The fire commissioners will meet with you folks, and we'll have the chief's requested plan, which, so the board knows, appears to be more of a safety and flow issue at the fire station than anything else. So
Krause's going to give us GPS points on that survey as well, right?
I believe he said he was, right, Tim? Yeah. So that covers. The employees have received, most of the employees, I should say, have received the gift cards from the Board of Selectmen with holiday cards, wishing them a happy holiday. And I expressed that the board appreciated them as employees and thanked them. And many of them, or some of them, may have already written to you folks. So very appreciative, I being one of them. Thank you. H.L. Turner, in my report, I'm just going to touch briefly on it. In my report, H.L. Turner contract has been canceled. You should have a copy of the canceled contract. There will be a savings. Tim and I will get together on that amount and report back to you. We're waiting for, I believe, one final bill. Along that same lines, very briefly, you will see an A.M. Groton report, additional report, talking specifically about the foundation of the bridge and the need not to have any specific engineering in the opinion of A.M. Groton. Tim Dansereau is his name, and he cites history documents and other engineering reports that he's read. He is very comfortable. He expressed to me picking the bridge up, bringing it to his place, fixing it, putting it back, redecking it. I just want the board to know we're trying to be as simplistic as possible, but want to make sure that our investment is secure. Quickly, along the same lines, in my report, the historical grant that gives us the $500,000 to do this project. Thank you, Senator Shaheen's office. Tim and I have got to sit down and go through the minutia. It's quite involved. The grant has been awarded, but we've got a multiple steps, as you might imagine, to follow. So Tim and I are going to do that. We had locked in a date last week that didn't happen, and it might not happen this week, but we're going to begin moving forward and have some answers so that hopefully at town meeting, we have some very solid answers for the citizens.
Thank you.
I do have some documents in the red folder for you to sign that need to be signed. And I will have some documents that we'll need to discuss in a non-public setting that will need your signature as well. Having said that, lastly, we did get a Academy Street update. As of December 13th, McFarland Johnson has completed engineering and now is working on completing a design of a retaining wall that they will present to the board with costs involved as well for fixing that project. That concludes my
Good news.
report.
Wildlife crossing.
We missed it. Yes, Pat, that's right. We do need your approval, board approval for the wildlife crossing address for 911. And it has to be in the form of a motion and acceptance by the board. It becomes a permanent address for 911.
How are you going to get the word out to all the wildlife?
I thought,
Make them think, well, anybody
can I see
think
the-
that they're going to go in that spot?
well,
They did.
at least if
Did right here.
if they do Selectmen Jessamine, they'll know where the food is,
Have
which
an
number.
address.
Caleb and
Where is his proposed address?
It's off Range Road, so it's the Madam Chair can
Must be the Franklin then.
Madam Chair can explain it better.
It's off of Caleb and Pest House, I believe,
Yes, that's
and on the Franklin end, and it's right exactly on the border of Franklin, and you can see that if
Where it
Eric's
goes down, where it goes down toward the river,
Mhm.
makes the turn after it comes down Range Road, and then makes a turn to the left and goes down toward the river.
correct.
Not Range Road.
Not that far,
Pest
because
House
it
Road.
goes Caleb Hill, and then it's just beyond that, it goes into Franklin, but his property is in Tilton. His driveway is in Franklin.
Yep.
And so he has to get a driveway cut from Franklin. And E911, he has to get a address, because he can't go off of Caleb, because there's already a Caleb and you don't know which end you're going to send him to if you have E911. So we came up with 5 names, as you know, and we contacted Franklin, Tilton, and Belmont, and to see if there were any disparities. And we narrowed it down to 2, and it was really close. The second one was really close, and so he picked 7 wildlife crossing, and the reason for 7 is because the drive is more than 700 feet to the house, and 911 would like it to be a higher number than 1 in case of more development.
Okay.
So the motion is to accept
Name wild.
the name of 7 Wildlife Crossing for Jim Reagan's property, which is I thought I had the map and lot number here. I think it's on there.
We've
there.
never had occasion to do this before in my personal experience. Why all of a sudden are we doing it?
I think that there's an influx of people that are new houses up in that area, Joe.
There are, and that's,
Just like there will be new houses up in that area with Range Road.
so it's lot number 3.
Right.
Yeah, I know where it is. So the motion is to accept
Naming of the street
naming of Wildlife Crossing as
7 Wildlife Crossing.
7 Wildlife.
Right.
When you want to just say Wildlife Crossing, because that way you're doing the whole street in case there is other.
No, 7 Wildlife.
Needs a number, Eric.
They're
Yeah.
naming driveways, right?
9. Yeah, it's an E911 thing.
Okay.
They want it to be 7 Wildlife.
They
They do.
identify it by GIS.
I can understand them designating certain spots, certain locations, but wildlife crossing?
Well, that's
Well, they offered the owner to name
the street.
the street, and
Oh,
he
and
picked,
that's the name they chose.
Yeah,
and that's the name they
chose.
chose. Correct.
All right,
Wildlife Crossing.
so I'll second that motion. Did
Okay.
you put in lot number 3?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, I'll second that motion. Do we?
Motion has been made and seconded.
Isn't this essentially a driveway?
Yes,
It doesn't serve more than one residence, correct?
that's correct.
Correct. Yeah.
Correct. You're absolutely right.
I think it's confusing.
But for E911, that's where they're going to go,
I know,
right
we
to
had
that
this
direct.
argument years ago.
Yeah. I totally
And so
agree.
our responders would be the ones going to that residence. Correct?
or mutual.
Yeah. Yep. Yep. So you're good. So you guys go up Kendall Street, right? You'd have to go up Kendall Street.
We go the back way.
But you could go the back way.
Yeah,
The back road
is quicker.
You could,
Good.
as long as you. I was just gonna say.
I didn't mean over Pest House. I meant go further, take the left on Burley Hill.
And then go down Caleb Hill.
Then you'd have to take a right to get to.
This road here. Is that,
I mean, certain times of the year you could chance pest house. Not.
Except at the Beaver Dam.
Yeah.
Or-
Oh, that's
Okay, I'm going to call the question. All those in favor?
I had
Aye.
a question.
Oh, John. Go ahead, John.
It's real quick. I didn't know if we were going to call it Wild Crossing Road, Wild Crossing Way, Street, Circle, or anything like that.
Wildlife Crossings. And that's what 911 accepted.
I didn't know if they call it by a road or something like that, the official, a street or everything is avenue, road, or all that, a suffix to it. I didn't.
This is what they have in their, we already have it in the form ready to go, ready to be signed.
Yeah, Andover has Dyer's in Franklin, Dyer's Crossing as well.
Yeah.
And 911 accepts that. Without a suffix, John's right. So
Okay, cool. Thanks.
So that's a yes?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Motion passes.
Madam Chair, I did also forget the approval of the gate at the Eversource, the gate expansion. Eversource was before the board to explain. Eric, I did know, Eric Adams met with Mr. Wolf, and I'm sure he could share that with us. Eversource only asked, and I did send Mary Kate's report to you from Eversource.
Mhm.
She did only ask that the gate expansion be approved. Any other issues that need to be addressed, she assured in a report to me that I sent to you that any issues would be addressed, and she felt very comfortable that everything has been that was discussed or concerned has been addressed. So
I'll make a motion that we accept, I'll make a motion that we allow Eversource to put a 16-foot gate and replace a 16, let me just redo that one.
Is it a 16-foot gate?
Yeah.
12 to 16.
Yeah, 12 to 16. So,
Go ahead.
Can I say something before motion is made?
yeah,
What do we have? I know that they said that they'd maintained it, but what do we have for assurances that they will maintain it?
Nothing other than a letter that says any action that they take, they will maintain from here forward. That is in written form in the report, but there's nothing other than the fact that,
They know who
Okay.
we are
yeah,
and how we act.
I mean, they did sit here and say that they would. But
Yeah.
and Mary Kate assured me that any issues the town needed would be addressed. So,
Hmm.
I mean, as far as that endeavor goes, to
I
be
s-
able to get that line through.
I suppose if they don't, we can always take it down and put it back to
Mhm.
smaller gate, which is easier to maintain.
Right.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Okay.
I didn't know if that would change the
so I did.
language of the motion.
Um, so I did go out and meet with Mr. Wolf, and I did actually get to lay eyes on the boundary line that where he was making his statement about the stone wall being moved. He did show me the mark, the drill mark on the rock, as to where that was his boundary marker that basically is kind of a starting point for several boundaries. So the issue obviously is going to be that that rock really should be put back to where it was. I mean, it definitely looks like it was moved in the sense that it's, if you look at the landscape, it looks like it was just kind of pushed over there.
Right.
So there's that issue. The other issue is that there's probably a 14-foot metal culvert pipe that they just left there, and it's been there for God knows how long. It's got stuff growing all over it.
Hmm.
I think it's important that they take that, get rid of it, since, I mean, apparently they were using it in place of putting it in front of the gate, according to Mr. Wolf, to help keep people out. But it clearly hasn't been used for that purpose in God knows how long. I think shouldn't be there, so it serves no purpose. So I'm okay with them putting the gate, making that extension, but I really think it's important that the boundary goes back to where it was.
And be good neighbors. Right.
Yeah. The only issue with that is that it's about 4 feet into the road.
Hmm.
That's the problem.
Yeah.
And unless they redo that road and go on the right-hand side to where the original road was, and Catherine, I think you
Mhm.
know as well, and go along that embankment, they're not going to be able to cut in their vehicles between the pole and or the cement pad and the um, boundary line. I mean, it should have never been moved in the first place. I clearly can see it. I think, according to Mr. Wolf, this was brought up to the PD back in like the early 90s. So it wasn't, nothing was done about it, but that's just my thought. Obviously, you guys have a lot more history with dealing with this. Mr. Wolf said that you had a map, and I just hadn't gotten a chance to connect with you. But that's, I mean, my concern is that I just would like to see if that's the case, and that's where that boundary was, it should have never been moved. I mean,
Joe?
The Eversource people went out and surveyed that line, correct?
That's correct. They did.
Does the marker go 4 feet out into the road according to their survey?
I believe that it does, but I can't say that for sure. For sure, Joe. I do know in her letter to me that anything that the town wished for them to correct, they would correct.
Can they drive a pin in that location?
I think that they can. I would think that they can. Yeah.
Yeah, the only thing with that is that does not account for the rock with the hole.
right.
Will that?
Which is what is apparently in the original deed.
Right.
If they drive a pin in there, I have no idea. I'm just curious. A gravel road, wouldn't that come up after a while?
This is New England.
Mm-hmm.
We birth rocks.
Right. So I mean,
definitely,
maybe if
yeah.
it was
can
like
be
a,
buried below the grade of the road. The water company has
I mean, you
water things all over town that are buried 12 inches underneath the ground. And there's like a ground penetrating radar or whatever.
Yep.
Doop, 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 boop. Okay, this is where the boundary is.
Got it.
I think they should be made to put it back the way it was. It is against state law to move
Boundary
stonewall
markers.
boundaries.
yeah, and I get it. The people that came and presented, I understand. It wasn't them specifically, and they probably weren't even, I'm sure they probably weren't even working
Right.
for the company. But
And
the
it was a
reality
different
is,
company back then.
right. The reality is, unfortunately, they are now bearing the burden of this.
Nor do we know if it was in fact Eversource.
Well,
It was public service. I
no,
think,
Public
at the
service.
time.
who it
public
was
service.
Mr. Wolf believes it was Ambrose, because Ambrose put that access road in, cut the access road in
Yeah, but they
for,
were working
Public
for
service.
public
they were
service.
working for public service.
Right.
Right. Exactly. So, I don't think it was a public service specific, but
When you
they were
work
working.
for public service, you work for their
Right.
engineers. And
Yeah,
That's right.
exactly.
Yeah.
So my opinion, I'm okay with them, right? If we were to make a motion on the gate, I'm okay with that. I think my only thought is, and I know that they've been very respectful about it. I know that they understand what's going on. And I would, in good faith, I would love to see them put that rock back, fix the stone wall. The rocks clearly were pushed. Have them bring them back, put the stone wall back, and figure out how they can redo that section of the roadway.
That could be a good summer project.
Right. I will
they
express
pass
that.
mistakes.
Oh, one more thing.
What? Go ahead, John.
Yeah, if they do put a new marker in and they abandon that rock, I'm not sure the process for it, but the description of boundaries on the registry of deeds should reflect that. So,
Yep.
Right.
50 years from now, people don't keep looking for that rock again.
Yep,
Good
exactly.
point. Very good point.
Why they need to put it back.
Yeah, I agree, John. And that's why I also, like Catherine just said, I think it just needs to go back. I mean, that's why I wanted to go see it in person. I did. I clearly can tell that it was moved. And so, yeah, so that's kind of where I stand right now.
Okay. I will communicate that.
So at some point, it needs to. Greg, good? Yeah, can you go up to the,
Yeah, good point. Greg's
There was
got
a
good
young,
point.
Greg DeVolder, 161 School Street. There was a young couple that was here sitting next to Mr.
Yep, the
Wolf.
Kilmisters.
Yeah.
Yep.
I don't know if they were in your meeting when you were with Mr. Wolf,
No, they weren't.
but they were very concerned about the stone wall going back and then having the ability to get into their property if
Absolutely.
that took place. And I
Yeah.
know they mentioned it to Mr. Wolf, and he's like, "Well, that's too bad."
Yeah, and I will have a conversation with them. I've already been speaking with Shelby on.
does
a different-
close them off.
Yes. I'm thankful that Greg brought that up because now it blew off some cobwebs in my brain. They did have a big concern about
Well,
that.
so it doesn't actually cut them off because their driveway is before that. It cuts off. It would cut a little bit of Mr. Wolf's roadway, and then the house just to the right of it. So there's Mr. Wolf's, and then there's another one. They share the driveway, and then it splits up there. But the Kilmisters is just before that. So just as you're turning to the access road part, their driveway shoots off to the right and goes up, which was, according to Mr. Wolf, the original roadway that went up. So yeah, but yeah, you bring up a good point. I'll touch base with Shelby.
Okay.
Lastly, for me.
Oh, we need to make a motion.
Oh, I'm sorry.
We didn't make the motion.
I'm sorry.
Somebody make the motion, please, because
I'll make the motion
screwed it
to-
up twice.
Yeah, no, I'll make the motion to allow Eversource to extend the gate from 12 feet to 16 feet, 2 feet on each side.
Second. Motion has been made and seconded. Discussion? All those in favor?
I
Aye.
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 Unanimous.
The last thing was the disposition of abatement that is needed your signatures if you
It's in
hadn't
the to be
already signed
signed.
it.
Yep.
Already signed. Perfect.
We need to send payroll down to Eric
Yes.
that needs to be signed
I think I
right
signed it.
here.
Oh, this, yeah.
Payroll and AP.
Thank you.
And that's it for me, Madam Chair.
All right, thank you very much. I know we have a chock-a-block full, and that's why we're not having a cookie contest, because we have a huge non-public meeting. Is there any selectmen that feel that they have to have something come before us tonight and not be able to save it till our next meeting? Because I didn't put selectmen's reports down.
I don't, but I do have a question for Scott. I'm sorry, I forgot it. How are we doing with the whole sale of town property? What can be sellable?
Good. Chuck Bodine is working on it for me.
Oh, he is.
Yep.
And I think I did some research for him on one piece, and I think he's pretty well close to finished with it. So,
Yep.
so
Thank
Yep.
you.
Yep.
He is.
I have just one thing.
Go ahead.
Saturday night, the 14th, I did my first volunteer drive for the senior center for the Gift of Lights. That was a blast. I had 6 people come with me, plus my daughter. So yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Great. And we appreciate it. He's our new bus driver. He is really he signed up.
did you get the bus out on the track and
Oh, I
give
did.
it
Yeah.
a test?
Oh yeah.
No, don't encourage him either. Thank you very much. Okay.
I just have one quick thing,
All right,
a
John.
quickie. On the land use for the permission to represent somebody, if somebody's going to come in at a meeting to represent them, there's nothing that specifies which project they're on or for what period of time. So once that is signed, they have it forever, whoever they give that to. So I didn't know if we could put that, more specific so that it's just not a blanket on everything that they want to do, or that person. So somebody could walk in and say, "Oh yeah, well now I'm here to do this," even though the owner didn't. Take a look at it, you'll see.
And it's called land use.
Yeah, it's the thing to we did some. It's an application so you can represent. I'll send you
It's
a
the
message on it,
representative.
and just like an expiration
I
date
have
on it or
not
something.
used it since I've been here, so I just wondered what it was.
Yeah,
Yeah, which form is?
All right, Tim will get in touch. We'll work it
yeah,
out. Thanks,
you know
John.
something. Yeah, that's it.
Yep.
I'm good.
We'll do it. Thank you. All right, Tim, on the
Okay.
budget
So I've
and a couple
if you
other things.
Yep, if you go to my report, before I go into the budget, I'm just going to cover a few other things. First of all, you'll see the remaining two payrolls for this year will be before the holidays, each of the holidays. And beginning of the year, we did budget for 52 weeks, although there are technically 53 pay periods in this year. And that happens every fourth year or thereabouts. And but we're not in any danger of exceeding our budget. And this was a byproduct of the end of last year, beginning of this year. The status, you can see some of these first status items. The TAN we've repaid, senior center generator, we've got that all sorted out with the last invoice to get it running, which was there was a small dispute on it, but the vendor and we came to an agreement on that. And then lastly, and John, I hope you saw my my report regarding the Sherwood Drive light. So this went on for such a long time. Eversource couldn't give any direction on it. They were pretty sure it was a state light that was out, but it was out by design, as it turns out. The state had removed a number of lights from their ledger, and when they're removed, it was coded as no owner of the light. So basically, they were reducing their bill for street lighting, and so therefore, I requested that this light be put into the town's ownership and put on our ledger, and then also ordered an LED fixture for it, so that at some point in time, I don't know how quickly it's going to happen because it is in a tough spot for them, and they have there could be weather issues, but it will get on the work order to get done. So that'll take care of that.
Awesome.
On the second page, great. On the second page, the permit study. So I would like to review again with the board the need to increase the permits for land use, and it would be nice to be able to start it effective January 1st. I did plan to meet with the planning board, and I was prepared to meet with the planning board to review the permits. However, they didn't have a quorum that evening, and so they did not hold their meeting of December. But I would like to see if the board is willing to proceed forward with that, and I will still be happy to meet with the planning board and bring back any additional feedback if they feel as though something needs to be adjusted after the fact. But I guess I'm wondering, would the board like to adopt those fees that I outlined in the prior meeting?
Yes, for me.
Yes.
Yes.
I mean, yes.
I have
The
questions.
only
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, John.
Go ahead,
Yeah.
John.
The only one I think I discussed it real quick with Tim. Um, there was something on the sign permits that it was
Oh, yeah.
the cost of the permit was based on the value of the sign, and I was concerned that people would cheapen out on a sign just to save money, and it would discourage people making really nice signs. I was thinking there would be a better way of charging for that.
Well, I think, as I thought about that, it's to the business's advantage to have the nicest sign that's going to attract business for them. I would think, having, been in business myself in the past. So I guess that is a concern. But I also see that where there have been signs of really expensive signs that have gone up that have required inspections and so forth. We're charging, and I'd have to go back and look at our current fee schedule, but in some cases, it's such a small amount of money, $50 or $60 to put up a sign. So we're really not recouping our costs to do the multiple inspections or to ensure that it's that the enforcement is, or the zoning and the size and everything else is correct on it. So I think where we have had problems with signs in the past, this will allow us to recoup more money, to spend more time to ensure that the sign is of an appropriate size and type for that zone and that business. But it's a valid point. It's just I thought this was a good way to better capture the permit revenue from this.
Yeah, and my big concern was that in downtown that people could toss up a quick lettered sign. But if you had a shop that wanted to put up a more like a really nice hand carved or some type of sign that could cost a lot of money, that they're going to be discouraged from investing it. But we can still address this down the road. I think everything else looks good, but I think we want to see what we can figure out with that. If it involves electric, to cover those extra inspections. But I just want to make sure that people don't get discouraged from making a nice sign, and especially the little guys.
Right. You will see that depending upon whether it's residential or commercial, that the fees for sign, the base fee was increased for both.
Yeah.
So the other thing too is I was asked to spell out more on the certificates. So it does list occupancy or inspection in the renewals or certificates, any of those that are required, and it lists out those fees.
Yeah.
That was one of the other requests from the board.
Like you said,
Well,
it's kind of fluid thing. If we got to move forward with it and get something, because we're way
We're
below
missing-
our cost for actually doing it. Yeah.
Exactly. We're missing revenue. Yeah.
where it says renewal / certificate of occupancy, it should also say and certificate of inspection, which is two different things. I mean, it's the same thing, but yeah.
Does your do you have one that says dated 12/11?
No.
So the 12/11 version of this says renewal / certificates, and then in parentheses occupancy or inspection
Oh, good.
to cover any of
Does
those.
the new one also have the temporary sign?
That no.
Oops.
What and that was a 90-day.
The temporary sign is for 90 days in 1 calendar year.
Or 1 calendar year?
In 1 calendar year,
In
you
one
can have a
calendar
temporary
year.
sign permit for 90 days.
Per calendar
Then
year.
you have to wait.
So So what you could do is you could adopt the, just the sign permit fee minus the percentage increase over it. That could be, or you could just, so you follow what I'm saying? In other words, $50 for
I do.
residential.
But it takes, so the temporary sign takes more time for code enforcement than regular sign actually, because the land use has to issue the permit. And then you have to monitor it to make, it's only there 90 days. They don't take it down on their own, then you have to send them a letter, blah, blah, blah.
Would you be okay with, on the line that says signs and put in parentheses, including temporary signs allowed 90 days
Well,
per
I'm
calendar year?
thinking, I don't know what, Pat, do you know what it is now? Is it $50? 35?
No, I don't know what it is. I have to look at it.
I don't,
By just, making it, maybe $75 for the temporary sign?
I don't believe it was listed separately. So is that what the board would like to do? Temporary sign 90 days,
Well, it
per
is 90
calendar
days
year?
in the ordinance.
up to 90 days
We
per
can't
calendar
change
year?
that.
Yeah, the ordinance says 90 days.
Yeah, but the ordinance is the ordinance. I'm just saying the fee should be, if we're gonna up the others, it should be, if it's $50, it should be 75, and if it's 35, it should be
50.
55.
Yeah.
Okay. I
The
guess,
other question I have,
Mhm.
and people have asked me, and I refer them to land use, I'm sorry, but I don't know the answer to it, is if you have, as a homeowner, if you're going to say you've got wall-to-wall carpeting and you're going to recarpet a room and take that out, do you have to get a building permit?
No,
If I'm going to retile my kitchen floor, do I have to get a building permit?
no.
But isn't that an alteration? So what level of alteration generates a building permit? That doesn't seem to be clear anywhere.
May I, madam? I thought we had a discussion with Chuck Bodine on this, and Chuck is really the expert, but Chuck said structural alteration or addition was the key language in the housing code, the state housing code, as I recall it,
Right.
because it was Cindy who came down and asked me, you were gone, and she asked me specifically, I think it was a case that we had open. It was, I take it back. It was the case that you and I talked about. Remember, we checked with Chuck, and that particular person
Did not have to do it.
did not have to do it, right?
So should we just move in the second line where it says alterations, additions, structural repairs, move structural out to the outside? So it says
That's-
structural additions,
Yep.
alterations and repairs?
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah,
Then
that
would
makes
be,
sense. Yeah, I had already
That would be consistent.
noted that here.
Yep.
Yep. So, and Catherine, I would recommend for the temporary sign, just to include that in the existing sign language, as you say, that it requires more work than the existing signs. I wouldn't
Well,
make it less money.
the
than
planning board,
existing.
sites plan a business. And they have to comply with the ordinance, and it's part of the process. Their sign goes up, they pay the fee. But the temporary sign has to be monitored more closely.
Right, and all I'm suggesting is that that it could still fall under and be listed on that line
Oh,
next
I
to
don't care where you
signs.
list it.
What's that?
I don't care where you list it, wherever it's convenient
But
or
in any
makes
case,
sense.
the same use the same fee structure, because you're saying that it would be more intensive.
Well, I don't know, you should charge 2% or 4% per square foot for a temporary sign.
So perhaps then just the
Just
what
a
I
flat
originally
fee, I would
what I
think. What do you
originally
think, Pat?
yeah.
You deal with them more than anybody. Just a flat fee?
Right. So the 50 and 200 for the flat fee.
Mm-hmm.
So the percentage would be on permanent signs.
Right.
Temporary.
With the
Oh,
temporary
yes,
would,
yes,
On
yes.
permanent
The
signs.
percentage would be on the permanent
On
sign.
Right.
permanent, that would
The
be
flat
better.
fee would be on the.
Flat
Right.
fee
on
on
the
the temporary.
flat fee on the temporary, flat fee plus percent on the permanent.
Yeah.
Okay.
The only other thing that I think that we forgot was, well, I shouldn't say forgot, because it's come in within the last week, a pretty good influx of wireless communications where they're just putting a cap on a pole requiring only electricity. So Chuck says, well, we can't offer him a building permit because it doesn't fit within the realm of the building permit. But if there's electricity, we charge him a electrical fee, which is pretty cheap accordingly. But we have one wireless that's going to put 6 little poles up on Route 3 within the DOT right away. Little tiny poles. And then there's another wireless company coming in and redoing theirs and changing the caps on all of theirs. That's revenue to us that we should be charging them a building permit because indicative of their emails that they ask ahead of time, what are your fees? What are your permits? What do you charge? We have to go through this with other towns. And when I say, well, unless it involves electric, we don't have a permit for wireless. But yet they're changing. We have
Well,
3 or 4 companies right now that are doing it.
so I would put it right under the same category as the electric, plumbing, solar, and either add a category to that or list
What
of
are other
subcategories.
communities doing with it?
They have a fee of $100
Per pole, per unit,
Per-
or?
per unit,
Per unit.
and then an electrical permit. And then they
Something we have to go out and inspect after they do it?
electrical permit. You'd have to
So
have
there's
the,
no,
you
there's
have
no
to,
work on our part. In other words, Chuck doesn't have to go out and make sure it's so many feet.
And what are they
right,
putting it
no.
up? Where are they
Okay.
putting them up?
Well, most of them are existing, they're changing them.
Oh, okay.
If we aren't actually doing anything in this process, how can we charge a fee for it?
Well, and a lot of
Just
this,
because?
a lot of building permits are, so that the assessor knows that an improvement has been made.
Right, so if we're
Which I
changing
have.
windows,
What about this particular
But in this, I
instance?
agree with Joe. If it's not generating any work on the town's part,
Because these fees are supposed to help defray the costs of the inspections.
it's generating a building permit. A building permit,
Yep.
you have to, it's gonna generate Chuck going out there.
well, that's what I asked.
Well, yeah, well, I said yes.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh,
I didn't hear you.
right.
So
So
if
it does-
they put in a pole, he has to go inspect it?
He has to inspect the electrical work. They're not putting, right now, they're not putting in a pole. The pole is like 6 feet high.
And it'll have some form of electricity
Correct.
on the pole.
On the cap. Correct.
Well, then we should see what others are charging. And if
We could
Chuck
do
has
it-
to go out and inspect it, then yes, it does cost us.
We can always put a category in and then tweak it later.
Okay.
Yeah, I would add it to the electric, plumbing, solar.
Yep.
Right.
Okay.
Just add wireless to that.
Let's not,
Wireless.
yeah, let's not forget it because we do see an influx coming in with these.
Tim, is there any way you could find out what other towns are?
Called a connection fee, I think,
Is it
Yeah.
in many
we can-
communities. Yeah.
We can see.
Yeah.
Yep.
connection fee?
Okay, is that it for everyone? I'd like to make them, oh, I'm going to stay out of that. Go ahead. Somebody else make a motion to approve it.
So if I may just recap, so
Corrected.
a motion will be made to adopt these fees with the following changes, changing the structural alteration line to reflect that these are structural alterations, additions, and repairs, to add wireless to the electric, plumbing, solar line, to add to the sign line, in parentheses, a note about temporary signs along with the requirements of that, and that only be the base charge, and then any permanent signs are the base charge plus the percentage, and then and that's it.
So moved.
Second.
A motion has been made and seconded. Discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Terrific. Okay.
Yeah.
That-
Opposed?
oh, sorry.
Nay.
One nay. Motion passes.
Okay, so the next item is regarding the elderly exemption and income limits. And this is, the board had asked to have some time to take a look at this and look at the data. And I was asked to send out the 2023 exemptions and tax credit summary report from DRA, which I did. And again, I would remind the board that while we have some insight as to what the cost to taxpayers will be for the exemptions, we don't know what the income limit change would mean to taxpayers, because we don't know what people's incomes are. But it does seem as though, and you can see on your sheet that shows the 23 exemptions, that in the married limit, we're at the low end, not the lowest, but at the low end of most of the county for the married income limit. And we are towards the bottom end of the single income limit, but not at the very bottom. So the question for the board is, the recommendation was made to increase the single income limit from 26,000 to 28,000, and the married income limit from 34,000 to $40,000, and then to raise each of the exemption categories by age by $30,000. So the elderly exemption of 65 to 74 years old would go from 50,000 to 80,000. The elderly exemption 75 years old to 79 years old would go from 80,000 to 110,000. And the elderly exemption for 80 plus years old would go from 125,000 to 155,000. The cost to taxpayers of those increases is less than $5,000 based upon the current census of the elderly that are elderly exemptions, I should say.
But those three increases that you just mentioned, I'm not talking about the married, single, etc. I'm just talking about the elderly exemption by age category. That sends us at the top of the list of Belknap County.
It does.
Are you anticipating that the other communities that were assessed during this year would also raise theirs? Are we doing this just because of these assessments?
If I might, Tim?
Yes,
It was
please.
recommended in my previous job, it was recommended by Avatar prior to the reval itself, so that it would give low income a little better opportunity to stay within that range. And I think it was, as I recall, Lauren had recommended it to the Tilton Board of Selectmen, and we neglected, or somebody or it got neglected
Right.
in 24 to do it before,
Right.
which may have prevented a number of those people who we've got coming in with complaints of just being over the amount by $100 or $200, a very minimal amount. Does that help, Catherine?
Sort of.
Okay.
I mean, according to what I have from DRA, Belknap County, Tilton, 2023, gave $1,767,000, $767,100 in tax exemptions just for the elderly. That's a lot. I mean, my concern is, and trust me, I'm in the category. I get it. Elderly are having a hard time, fixed income. But what do we do to help the others? Middle income people trying to send kids through college or just trying to make it through. New families starting out who'll probably never be able to afford a home in this market.
Right.
But we don't have anything that gives them relief of any type. And I'm hesitant to increase those 3 lines. It's such a high amount compared to the other communities. When do we have to have this in by?
Well, this needs to be on your warrant.
Right.
If you're
And
going to
the
make a
warrant is
change.
due how many weeks before town meeting?
Well, the budget public hearing is on the 15th of January.
Right.
Yeah, but our warrant is different.
The warrant is different. However, they would still need to weigh in on the moneyed warrant articles. So the last, I believe it's February 11th is the last
Right.
day to hold a public hearing. So
On the budget.
on the budget, and February 4th is the last day for
Right.
petition warrant articles. The other problem we run into in February is we will be in a world of hurt for the town report if we are pushed right up against that February 11th
Oh, yeah.
date,
Yes.
because it has to get to the printer within about a day after that to make our deadline.
Somebody has to make up the difference of the property taxes that aren't paid.
Mm-hmm. And what did you say? It was 5,000?
So based on
That's
the
just a small part of it.
That's
Right.
just right.
So
That's just a small.
for the 3 exemptions, the income limits, we have no way of knowing what that would mean to taxpayers, because we don't know obviously what people make.
Right.
So but we do know where the people that currently have qualified or have applied for the elderly exemption, where they stand and what that would mean in terms of dollars, and it's less than $5,000
Okay.
for those. You could certainly, come up with any particular number for those. These were just suggestions.
In last year, we didn't do this. And like Scott said, but as a board, we sat here and promised we would do it
Mm-hmm.
to the public,
Mm-hmm.
that we would do it this year, and we would put it out there as a warrant article for approval.
And this is something that the Board of Selectmen is not doing ourselves necessarily. This would be at town meeting.
Right.
The residents, at least the ones who show up at town meeting, will have a opportunity to discuss the pros and cons of this and then vote their
Correct.
But it's
will.
our job to put something out there that's responsible and feasible.
Mm-hmm.
They're not going to come to town meeting having studied. they'll have an opinion, but
And they can raise it at town meeting. They can raise those amounts.
Is the concern with the elderly exemption amounts the $30,000 increase, or is it more on the income limit side? Does anyone have any particular?
No,
my
go
just
ahead.
my concern is the elderly exemption increases by what is it, 30,000 each one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
$30,000 in today's real estate market is not that much.
No. In my previous job, Avatar did give us guidelines that were, as I recall them, relatively consistent with what we have here. But that's helpful. But
I mean, you could have that amount.
I think
I'm not willing to have that amount. I know what we went through these last couple of months, and I'm not willing to go through it again. They need help out there. Sorry.
hmm Well, like Joe said,
Let the town vote for it.
I mean, we bring it to the town. I get what you're saying. I am not. I think 30. It's a lot of money to me, but and I understand that, what you're saying as far as having those exemptions, but
It makes us higher than Laconia, Meredith, Guilford, communities that have a much higher tax base than Little Podunk, Tilton. I'm sorry, it just seems unreasonable. But that's just me.
I am all. I'm.
We'll have the exemptions. Put it down to 15,000.
Do what?
The elderly exemption.
Cut it in half, she said.
Cut it in half. To
So
15,000.
65, 95, and 140.
But keep the 26 to 28, 34 to 40 for
Yes, I agree on
income.
those. I agree on those. Those should go up.
Right.
Yeah.
So the
Raise it.
28,000 and the 40,000, the board is okay with?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Yep.
All right. So
Okay,
we're okay on that. So it's the elderly exemptions that we're having the difficulty with.
So cutting that in half to 15,000.
Right.
What does that look like? You think, Tim?
You mean the tax impact?
Yeah.
Well, it's going to be less than the 5,000, less than that.
Yeah.
So,
Well,
it might be 3, possibly.
I don't have the paper that you have, Catherine, that on the Belknap County. So what do you?
It's in your binder.
I don't have it. I'm sorry. I looked
Be in
for
your
it.
binder.
So, Tim,
Yes.
Thanks.
why
I'll
are
make a
we
copy.
higher than all those other? Was there any?
I don't know the history of that.
Okay.
I wish I did. I don't. But this was originally a result of a meeting with Pat and Lauren and myself going through and 2022's numbers were very similar to the 23 numbers. There was very little change among the communities from 22 to 23.
Yeah. Okay.
Madam Chair, may I offer a thought?
Mm-hmm.
Where the communities like Laconia are larger elderly population, the impact for them would be less. So I would
We do have
I would be suggesting that I would think it might be a per capita thing.
Yeah.
There's more
I'm-
elderly citizens
I'm
in
thinking
Laconia.
it's probably something like that because I do know that we have a very large elderly population in Laconia. So that would probably be my guess as well.
Laconia gave out
So-
$3,900,000 in elderly exemptions in 23, almost twice what we did.
Yeah.
But that less than 5,000 is based on those we now have that apply.
Right.
By doing what we're doing, other people may become eligible, and of course, other people,
Right.
turn 65, so it will increase. Thank you.
What do you think, John? What do you got for input?
It's a tough one. After hearing Catherine, I'm thinking I really should have looked at the demographics a little bit more to come to a good decision on it. Can we kick this out, till the next one or something? And
Yeah, we can do that. We can do that, John.
yeah,
Right.
we got to have some kind of relief because it hit a population that can't control their income at all. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Right.
it hurt.
A
All right.
whopping 2.5% Medicare or Social Security increase they got last year.
Yeah. That's huge.
Okay, so we'll move this discussion to
Yeah.
January 2nd. Right?
I still won't vote for anything that helps balance the budget on the backs of the most vulnerable residents. We're talking about the poorest segment of our people, and we're talking about $5,000. I'd rather find a spot on the budget and just dismiss the $5,000 from that line.
Well,
But it isn't just 5,000.
But I don't think Catherine brings up a good point. I don't think it will be just the 5,000.
That's one portion
Might
of
be
it.
7,000.
But it's,
what do you mean one portion of it, Tim?
So on the elderly exemption portion, we know the current census and we know the cost. What we don't know is the impact of how many people would qualify based on the asset and income limits. That we don't know. So there may be, more people that will qualify under 28,000 single and 40,000 married and with a $70,000 asset limit.
And that we passed on real quick without much discussion at all.
Right.
Right. So you're
Now we're sucked into giving these people $110,000. Can you imagine what kind of a property is worth $110,000?
no,
Nobody qualifies, all right?
Maybe
And
my
bringing
chicken
it
coop.
up to 150,000, still. I mean, what kind of a place can you buy? Maybe a trailer house. But even trailer houses have shot through the roof.
well, I think we should put it off. And I'd like to have a conversation with you.
So you currently have a meeting scheduled for the 26th for the budget. So it could be, again, discussed then, I suppose, unless.
Well,
you
we did say
decide to change
nothing
that.
else on the budget. I think we were trying to stick to that,
Well,
but
Mine-
this is part of the budget. So
part of our warrant.
can we do that, Madam Chair? Yeah, let's do that, Tim.
okay, all right. So I was going to give you a quick update. In your binders, you have the budget document for today, and it reflects, you'll notice that there are a number of items that were voted on by the Budget Committee last night. And in fact, they voted on most of the departments with the exception of the police department. They're going to address at their next meeting, as well as Culture and Recreation and outside agencies, the Sewer Commission, and Lockmere Village Water District. So they'll be voting on those, I expect, at their next meeting, which is on the 8th, January 8th. They have scheduled on the 15th the public hearing for the budget. And just very briefly, I just wanted to just explain some of the changes that they made within the town clerk tax collector's budget. They had reduced training and dues, reduced government reimbursements, and reduced election preparation line. I discussed the need for each one of these, but each one of those was reduced, and the overall town clerk tax collector budget was reduced $2,350. The next reductions occurred in the land use budget under economic development. They reduced the economic line for beautification by $1,000. And in health and welfare, they reduced the health officer miscellaneous expense by half. They, with my concurrence, reduced animal control to $1. And then they reduced the welfare general assistance line by $10,000, thereby negating the increase that the welfare director had sought for the year. In the highway department, they reduced, which was planned to reduce the equipment rental line by half, since we're only renting the lift one time this year. They reduced miscellaneous expense by $500, reduced building repairs by $6,000, but it still allows the Department of Public Works to address the heating system that needs about a $4,500 cleaning. The things up in the ceiling of the main garage and all. And then also it allows them money to fix the salt and sand shed. Outside of that, there was a small adjustment to the sanitation recycling processing line to reflect the fact that we're still not doing any volume bailing at this point. So we reduced that supply line by half. And those were the changes that you see, and they did vote on those items where you see Budget Committee voted. So the question was, and I was hoping we would have more time tonight, but it doesn't look like that's going to occur. But I wanted to bring that to your attention where they had made changes. And outside of that, I did list out some of the other items that I'm working on. So I do now have pricing on fiber replacement, which would incorporate also the senior center, allow them to have greater speed. Every Wednesday night, they run into issues where when they do their music night, for one thing, many of them use tablets for their sheet music. And we run into issues of bandwidth all the time. This would also allow us to have additional phone service within the building, where we have one plain old telephone system line right now called a POTS line. We'd be able to go to phone extensions in the kitchen as well as in the office area. And it would also allow us to have fiber access at the Department of Public Works. In order to get it into the framework of what we're paying now, we would have to negate access at Riverfront Park for the surveillance and just continue on the way we're doing it now. So I've gotten pretty close. I can review that with you in more detail at your next meeting. And then I also listed out the encumbrances as they exist today. I do think, and just briefly on the year-end position, it looks as though after the additional payrolls this year, the encumbrances that we've already listed, expensing and showing the liability of the banked paid time off that was taken advantage of, as well as current AP, looks like we'll be sitting somewhere just over $200,000 to be added to fund balance. So it would allow the board, and I want to do a little more fine tuning on this, but it looks like it would allow the board to encumber and not have to pay out of the capital reserve for the second coat of Morrison Avenue and Grant Street. So that would preserve the capital reserve fund for those projects that were regularly scheduled for the following year. So, so that's again, there have been a lot of things going on, and I haven't been able to spend as much time as I need to give you a definitive answer on that. But I will at your next meeting. Outside of that, I just wanted to note that there's a lot of discussion about these big projects that are out there, and one of the presenters at the zoning board meeting the other night actually stated what they saw as the valuation of the property, which took me about 6 nanoseconds to determine that would mean about $617,000 of tax revenue for the larger apartment complex and industrial facility, and that the one across the street would generate somewhere around 349,000 if what the presenter said was and a correct value would generate about 350,000. So in total, those two projects, granted, there's a lot of hand wringing over them, but they would generate nearly $1 million of tax revenue for the town. So I just thought it was important to kind of note that for the board.
And in the tax revenue for the town, how much would that lower? Is that by like 20% or
it'd be pretty
10%?
significant. I don't have an exact figure, but
Interesting.
It would be something that that every taxpayer would feel. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's looking at it from the revenue side. So in any case, that is all I had in my report, unless you have any questions for me.
I had a question, Tim.
Sure.
I know you brought up the increased tax revenue, but we also have to think about the increased cost to the school district and the cost. I believe it's like $13,000 a student to send them to school. So that would increase our what we're going to get hit for by the school district. So I don't know what you have to incorporate those numbers into your tax revenue
So,
for the final number.
So in fact, it's very difficult to get attendance figures on new developments because when the Highland Ridge development went in, the cluster development off of School Street, I believe there's 24 units in there that are 3-bedroom homes, and we finally determined, I think there were the last I knew, there were 3 school-age children. Originally, it was thought 5, but I think it turned out to be 3 school-age children out of those 24 units. That's not to say that obviously a lot has to do with the type of unit that people are attracted to, if it's a retirement home or as opposed to an apartment complex. But you're correct. There are costs, infrastructure costs, other costs that go along with that. But there are some standards by which you can go through. And I wasn't able to pull out from what was discussed the other night. There was some figure given for the number of children. It was some fraction of children per something, and I didn't catch that sufficiently to really try to figure that out. But and also, just so you know, the current next year's school budget is I think the increase is somewhere around 2.4% right now, and before warrant articles for their operating budget. And the state is also the state's been sued over the education funding. In the last go round, the state argued that heat and building structures are not requisite to a adequate education. So
Yeah.
I know it sounds funny. basically they don't want to pay for anything.
Yeah.
So and a lot of this unfortunately comes back to the fact that we live in the live free or die state, and so many people have been impacted by our method of taxation this particular year because of market values. And yeah, it may be an anomaly, but it's still the law, and it hits some groups harder than others. But
Pass down.
and it's same thing for education. Yep. So any case, but yeah, you're absolutely correct. There's a whole nother side of that coin to look at.
Okay, thank you all. Is there any more business to come before us in a public session? Hearing none. Time being 6:26, I'm going to make a motion, several motions, to move into non-public per RSA 91A: 2B and RSA 91A: 32C, and hiring of person as a public employee, and then C is reputation matters, which if discussed in public would likely adversely affect the reputation of any person other than a member of the board, unless such person requests an open meeting. This exemption shall extend to include any application for assistance or tax abatement or waiver of a fee, fine, or other levy if based inability to pay or poverty of the applicant. Do I hear a second?
I'll second it.
I seconded it by Eric. Roll call vote.
Dawson, yes.
Jessamine, yes.
Adams, yes.
Constantino, yes.
Scanlon, yes.
Okay, do we know how we're going to get this to John?
Yeah. Yes. So what we can do is we can simply excuse other people from the online meeting, and I can lock it.
Yep.
All right,
That's what
John,
you did.
stay online.
He did that for me when I was.
Okay.
Okay.
You got that? Stay online?
Good night, Kathy.
All right. Good night,
Yep.
Kathy. Good night,
Merry Christmas.
Chuck.
to you.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Good night, Greg. Merry Christmas.
Oh.
Okay, John, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. You can hear me?
Yes, yeah,
Yep.
we're still good. The session is locked. Did you actually make a motion to go into non-public? I'll stop the
We did.
recorder. Okay.
Yep.
All right.
This conference will now be recorded.
It'll dry. I'd like to make a motion to seal the minutes of the December 19th, 2024. The reasons justify the need for the non-public still remain. All but one. Wait a minute. All but one because we hired.
The employee issues could be permanently, and the other could be until the matter is resolved.
Okay, employee issues are permanently, and the other issues are until the matters are resolved.
Jessamine, second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. John?
Yeah, he's-
Yeah.
No, okay, thank you.
I heard that one.
Okay, are we meeting, hold on a minute, are we meeting next week or not? Do we still need to meet next week?
Hope not.
Is that the 26th?
Wasn't that the 26th for the
Yeah, well,
budget?
we thought maybe if we got things done tonight, we wouldn't have to meet. So, did we get things done enough for you?
Budget and elderly exemptions, but I guess they could go until the first meeting in
They
January.
They can go until, what is it, January 2nd?
Second.
Well,
They
well,
have
then
to
we're
meet.
piling it on for January 2nd, so I guess we're meeting.
The only thing I would ask the board to approve is that if there is the ability to encumber the money for the second coat for Morrison Avenue and Grant Street, that you permit me to encumber those monies for that purpose, as we have a quote from the contractor and the work will be done in 2025.
Yes.
We should meet on the 26th because there'll be encumbrances, I'm sure.
Well,
How
you've
many
already
more can there
approved,
be?
you've approved a number of them.
Yes.
They're
So how many
listed in
more
my
can there
report.
be?
Okay.
Yeah.
All
We
right.
don't have that much more money.
All right. I'll second that.
Just one
Oh.
question. There was, we were going to talk about outside agencies. Can we put that off too?
That's part of the budget.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's the budget. So that's
Okay.
going to be on the 26th.
yeah, you guys haven't voted on any part of the
I
budget
thought
so
that was going to
far.
be on
Yeah.
the second.
No,
Second.
we haven't. The budget.
Don't confuse John.
All right.
I'm-
How many? Listen,
We have a motion to encumber.
encumber.
No vote.
All in favor?
Yes.
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 Aye.
Okay. Yes on the 26th. How many?
No.
No.
I'll say no. I just have
I don't have a life, so it doesn't matter.
a question. We already encumbered the money for this year for the carryover for the Morrison.
That's what we
That-
just did.
We just did it.
No, well,
Yes.
No,
Yeah, but that was the second vote.
that's right. That's the second coat. We were paying for that Morrison out of ARPA funds, I believe.
Yes.
And that
Okay.
automatically carries over, right?
Okay.
That automatically carries over.
It's
Yeah.
committed.
You voted on it. Yep.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. So did you say yes or yes
John
or
said
no
yes.
Yeah.
for the
Yeah.
26th? And I said
We can kick it off.
you're a no and you're a no. I forget.
I'm
I'm
confused.
tired.
Are you meeting the 26th or not? You're not, right?
No.
You're not meeting the 26th.
No.
Next meeting, January
No,
2nd.
the next meeting is January 2nd.
January
We already
2nd
made
is
that
what they
decision.
want.
No, we didn't.
Yeah, we did.
I
You
said
just-
yes. You said yes.
No,
and
I
John
just said
said
no.
yes.
I didn't vote.
You changed your vote.
I didn't make a vote.
We
I
didn't
said
make
I
a
don't
vote.
have
Got
a
all
life.
the pressure.
So I just voted no because they would like to meet on the 2nd, and I don't really care because I don't have a life.
I
So-
don't either. I don't care
Well,
either.
I guess
But you
Tim-
were all wanted the 26th.
Tim.
Okay, no meeting on the 26th. Joe, do you have anything to come before us?
Well,
Yeah, just
Eric
this-
had something.
I just one quick. So there's nothing that's pressing because we did agree to meet on the 26th, but there's nothing pressing that can't be put off until the 2nd.
As far as I know at this point. And if for some reason that changes, I would get a hold of Chair Constantino and
Yeah, and
see if
then
the
we have an
board could have a
emergency
special meeting. Or you may need to meet with your town administrator also in that interim. You never know.
Oh,
So
Oh, that's right.
so we could have an emergency meeting
Well,
for a
the
short
thing
time.
is, we had already had it on the schedule. I had it on my schedule to meet the 26th. So
Me
I would
too.
say if it was an emergency,
Well, Merry Christmas. And if we have an emergency, we'll meet on the
Right.
26th.
If you don't, we won't.
There you go.
there you go.
All right. Joseph,
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
all in favor?
aye.
Aye.